let you know.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. It's Emma Code, meeting producer. I can confirm that the live stream has now started.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this virtual meeting of Cornwall Airport Newquay Consultative Forum. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the Council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share proceedings, I will adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored. If the issue cannot be resolved, I will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I will adjourn for a short period to try and re-establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I will remind you to switch on your microphones. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the Democratic officer will advise you. The vote will be taken by roll call and the result announced by the Democratic Services Officer. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on each item in order to be able to vote. Where a member has declared a non-registrable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave their virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the committee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using the raise your hand function, which is being monitored by the Vice Chair. Any members not on the committee or unable to use the raise their hand function who wish to ask a question should indicate by typing a X in the chat box. Before we start,
Chairman, sorry. I note that the Vice Chairman actually is present. Do you want to nominate somebody to monitor that box in his absence for the meeting?
Yes, I'm more than happy to nominate Jeff Brown if he'll accept.
Not a problem, Councillor Monk. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we need to vote on that, Rowena?
No, you don't. That's fine.
Okay.
Chairman, it's Emma Code, meeting producer. Could I just point out to Councillor Brown that Zara and Adi are struggling to use their microphones. So although they can hear what's being said, their comments will come up in the chat box, so you might want to keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Noted.
Thank you for that, Emma. Before we start today's business, I will ask the Democratic Services Officer to ask the committee members to confirm they are present and state their electoral division organisation that they represent.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I will call your name. Please confirm your name and electoral division or organisation that you represent. Ian Watkins. Ian, can you just confirm your name and the organisation you're representing?
Yes, Ian Watkins, and that's Cornwall Aviation Heritage Centre.
Thank you. Guy Blackford.
Hello, Guy Blackford, Sector Inspector for Newquay.
Thank you. Steve Murdoch.
Yeah, Steve Murdoch, Cornwall Air Ambulance.
Thank you. Chris Mann.
Chris Mann, St Morgan Parish Council.
Thank you. Suzanne Featherstone.
Suzanne Featherstone, Colham Parish Council.
Thank you. Nick Weston.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Nick Weston from Western Aviation.
Thank you. David Smith.
Hello, good morning. I'm David Smith, Western Aviation, Newquay Cornwall Airport.
Thank you. AD Hubbard, I know you can't, your microphone's not working, so can you just indicate in the chat box? Yeah, he's put that he's representing RAF St Morgan. Thank you. Councillor Fitter.
Cornwall Councillor, Colin and St Morgan.
Thank you. Guy Blackford. Oh, sorry, I've done you already. I've got you twice on my list. Okay, sorry, Councillor Kenny.
Good morning, Joanna Kenny, Newquay Pentire.
Thank you. Councillor Rushworth.
Thank you. Stephen Rushworth, representing St Izzy and St Judy District. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Good morning, Councillor John Wood, Roach Division. Thank you.
Thank you. Zara Dinnicum. Again, your microphone.
Zara Dinnicum, Fly Newquay Pilot Training.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Monk.
Councillor Oliver Monk, Newquay Treloggan.
Thank you. And Councillor Brown.
Yeah, Councillor Jeff Brown, Newquay Central and Cabinet Member for Transport.
Thank you. We also have the following officers present. We have Pete Downs, Managing Director of the airport, Miles Carden, Spaceport Director, Simon Mansell, Corporate Governance Legal Department, Ian McElworth, Head of Investment and Growth, Anna Druce, Community Link Officer for Newquay and St Column, Graham Scrimger, Commercial Estates Manager, and myself, Rowena Brebner, Democratic Officer. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Rowena. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We do. We have apologies from Gwen Jennings and we have Chris Mann attending on her behalf, and apologies from Thelma Sorensen and Jill Moore.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chairman, my name's Brian Dogan. I'm here on behalf of Thelma Sorensen, representing the Cornwall Business Partnership.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, you must have joined recently. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Did we have any, on item number 2 on the agenda, any declarations of interest? Are we going to take that as and when, or is there any declarations now? Okay. Item number 3, public questions. I know you mentioned there's a public question that needs a written response, Rowena.
Yes, Chairman, we have received some public questions, but the member of staff who is able to provide the accurate information is currently on leave. So it has been suggested that a response will be provided when they return. I mean, if necessary, this could be read at the next meeting, but the person that has asked the questions will be responded to as soon as possible.
Okay, that sounds okay to me. Is there any comment from anybody? John Fitter?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, is it possible for us to have the details of the question, please, sir?
Yes, certainly. Is it possible to read those out, Rowena?
Yes, I'll just get the email. Okay, so the questions are, it's to do with the noise and disturbance caused to the residents of St Morgan and Carlogus by persistent hovering of helicopters in the immediate vicinity, and the questions are: what planning consent covers the operation of the training helicopters, and does this contain any relevant restrictions / controls? What is your noise management plan for the airport, and what noise limits are contained within this? What noise monitoring is currently undertaken to ensure that you remain within the expected levels, and where was this last undertaken, and how many times in the past 12 months have noise thresholds been breached? Those are the 4 questions, Chairman, to which a response will be sorted. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Does anyone have, John, do you want to come back in again, John?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, can I ask Rowena, who have we been seeking the answers from that seems to be unavailable? I'm not quite sure how much notice you had of this question, but I wonder who it was that we've been seeking the answers from. Thank you.
Chairman, I think Mr. Downs could respond to that. He's got his hand up.
Yes, so the person that's currently on leave is our Senior Manager of Air Traffic Services, and we consider that it is appropriate to ensure that that he is consulted on elements of those questions before a written response is provided. But we will be happy to circulate that response as soon as he returns, and ensure that everyone on this forum can have sight of that answer.
Okay. Do we have a timescale for that?
He returns on the 2nd of October, so we will address it urgently at that time.
Okay. Councillor Fitter, are you happy with that response?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most happy, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, that's fine. And was there another public question, Rowena?
No, it was just, there were those 4 questions from the one person. So, I mean, they're all related, obviously. So It was just that one.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. I'm right in thinking that members of the public who maybe or wish to ask questions now would have needed to get those questions to us by the 21st of September, and no further questions have been submitted.
That's correct. Yes, they were submitted within the correct timescales, and no others have been received.
Okay. Councillor Fitter, you've got your hand up. Is that for a new hand up, or is that an old hand up that you've not taken down?
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. I think it's my old hand up that I should have taken down, but I've removed it now, I sincerely hope. Thank you, sir.
It's gone down. Thank you very much for that. I've got an X in the box from John, Councillor Wood. John?
I do worry when we respond to a question by saying that somebody is on leave, because that leave could turn into a leave of absence, and before we know it, a month could go by without answering a question. I think we need to construct a sensible letter that goes to someone saying we are seeking further information, because I had it once with a mortgage company, and that person was ill and then had a car crash, and before I knew it, 3 months had passed and my questions hadn't been asked. I think it's we do need to give a more comprehensive. I totally agree with John Fitter's comments that you know, we can't have a long delay in saying, oh, somebody's on leave. Thank you.
Okay. Is it possible to construct a response, Rowena, where we outline the timescale that we're expecting to have a response by?
Chairman, it's worth noting that the person that has asked the question is actually in attendance at the meeting. It's Mr. Mann, who is substituting for Gwen Jennings. So obviously he will have heard that discussion and be, you know, satisfied that a response will be provided as soon as possible.
Okay, if Mr. Mann's here, it seems to me is it worthwhile just asking him to see if he's happy with the response he's received so far at this meeting. He's not responding, so I'll take it that that's a given that we're going to respond along the lines that we've said. Pete Downs.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy for us to commit to a firm date of providing that response during the week commencing 5th of October, if that is helpful. That we can commit to do that, so that Councillor Wood can rest assured that if there are any unforeseen developments, that actually we take further steps to provide the answer and commit to do so within that time frame.
That's fine.
Thank you for that reassurance, Chairman. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay, so if that's it for public questions, we shall move on to item number 4, minutes of the meeting held on June the 18th. Now, I believe this is the only item on the agenda that we'll actually be voting on today. So you've all then received an advance copy of the minutes. Is there any comments on the minutes that were held on the 18th of June? Stephen Rushworth.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've just got one comment to make. It's on page 7, the Spaceport Cornwall report. And it's bullet point number 1. It's relating to the type of fuel used in the launches was a choice of the operator, and the team have confidence in the technology proposed. We did have a very long debate about this, and Miles did in the end say that there had not been a successful launch with this technology yet, and I don't think that's expressed in the minutes. If that could be, or I could ask the same question later on, so it could go into next meeting's minutes. But I think, as a forum member, I don't want to be told later on that yeah, you should have asked that question at the time, and we weren't being due diligent. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure if there's a question that needs to be re-asked again, I'm sure Miles won't mind re-answering it, and I take on board your point that maybe you thought that the question should have been in the previous minutes, but if you're happy to ask the question again, I'm sure we can get an answer to that question.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other comments on the minutes from the previous meeting? Okay. So we need to propose those minutes. So do I have a proposer for those minutes? Is that Councillor Brown for proposing?
Happy to propose.
And do I have a seconder for those minutes? That Councillor Kenny.
Chairman, Councillor Brown is actually an observer on the committee as portfolio portfolio holder and not therefore an actual voting member. So could somebody else perhaps propose?
I will propose.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
So I've got a proposer from Councillor Kenny and a seconder from Councillor Fitter. Are we doing hands up, crosses in boxes, or not doing anything? What's the procedure for voting?
I'll do a roll call vote, Chairman. So when I call your name, please indicate if you are in support or against of the minutes. Ian Watkins.
In support.
Thank you. Guy Blackford. Guy Blackford, can you indicate if you're in support or not of the minutes, please?
In support, sorry.
Thank you. Steve Murdoch.
Yes, support.
Chris Mann. Chris Mann, can you indicate how you wish to vote for the minutes, please? Or abstain if you choose. Okay, I'll come back to him. Brian Dolan.
I wasn't at the meeting, so I can't comment, so I suppose staying on that one.
Fine, thank you. Suzanne Featherstone.
In support.
Thank you. Nick Weston.
In support.
David Smith.
I wasn't at the meeting, so I will abstain on that.
Fine. AD Hubbard, if you could indicate in the chat box how you wish to vote for the minutes, please. Thank you. He has indicated that he's in support of the minutes. Councillor Fitter.
In support.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Support.
Thank you. Councillor Rushworth.
In support.
Councillor Wood.
In support.
Zara Dinnicum.
In support.
Thank you. Councillor Monk.
Support.
Thank you. And if I could go back to Chris Mann, could you indicate how you wish to vote in the minutes, or if you wish to vote, please? Either verbally or putting a message in the chat box. Chairman, there's no response, but I can confirm that there have been 12 in favour, so that has been carried anyway.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Rowena. So if we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda number 5, which is the Airport Operation Managers Report, which you should all have a copy of in front of you. Rowena, who's giving that report?
I'm assuming that Pete is,
Yes.
if that could be confirmed, please.
Yes, that's correct. I can take the forum through the Airport Operations Manager's report. I'm very conscious that obviously this has been a time of great change and great upheaval at the airport in the context of the collapse of Flybe and the coronavirus pandemic. So I will take the forum through some of the detail of the report, but I am of course very happy to take any questions from members about either anything that is contained in this report or any other questions that they may have about operational matters at the airport. So item 1.1 is an update on some of the technology developments that we've been implementing to move the airport to a new supplier of common use terminal equipment, which will effectively support the diversification of the airline portfolio at the airport in readiness for next year, as we move to recover and replace the Flybe routes with a range of different airlines that will operate on different systems, and this will support our compliant integration of those systems. Item 2.0, a general operations overview. The period covered by the report obviously is May to July. Happy to take any questions about any developments that have happened since that time. But effectively, this was the period in which we moved from the passenger terminal being closed due to the national lockdown through to preparing for the reopening of passenger flights, which occurred towards the end of this period in July. So in May, the operational focus was very much around implementing the 10-point COVID safety plan, which is listed there for members' information, which I won't go through line by line, as is fairly self-explanatory. Moving down to page 3. In June, really we moved to the detailed onboarding of both returning airlines and new airlines, as well as starting to return operational staff from furlough to get compliance training in place, ready for the onboarding of particularly Eastern Airways as a new carrier that came in following the reopening of the airport, and of course British Airways, who were set to commence and did commence towards the end of July. As you will know from the fact that it's me presenting this report and not Richard Thompson, who left the business at the end of July. We have had some changes to some key operational management positions, and that has required some changes to key documentation, particularly the aerodrome manual and our safety management system, including regulatory approval, and that process has been undertaken successfully and satisfactorily from a regulator's perspective in the period following this quarter on which we're reporting. July was then very much a dual process of getting the airport reopened and obviously implementing a very difficult but necessary airport restructuring plan to deliver our mission of removing approximately £2.7 million worth of operational cost out of the airport over this financial year and the 2021-22 financial year to support the government funding request, and to do as much as possible for Cornwall Airport Limited to help itself in effect before seeking further government assistance. I'm pleased to say that restructure has been completed and operations have continued on a business as usual basis whilst that has been happening. We had a successful onboarding of the British Airways service, with positive feedback received from the airline's station management team, and no major issues or concerns identified to be rectified during the inaugural flight or subsequent to that. We've also seen Eastern Airways, as I mentioned, introducing their new routes to Teesside and to Leeds, and making several operational changes in response to strong demand, including increasing the size of the aircraft to a larger type, and adding some additional rotations in during August and September to capitalise on additional demand. But of course, set against that is the fact that we have seen some some significant fluctuations in demand on international routes during this period of time, in accordance with the removals and additions of Spain and Portugal on the government's red list in terms of travel corridors. Moving on to aviation security, the threat level remains at moderate. In terms of air traffic services, you can see from the first graph on page 4 that there was a significant increase in total air traffic movements during July. And actually the level of movements has returned to a large extent to levels that were seen in 2019 and 2018. I believe it was around the third busiest July for movements that we've had in the last 10 years. So any reduction in scheduled flights has been largely offset by increases in other movements. In terms of noise complaints, you can see that they are listed for June and July, all of which relate to Cobham helicopter flying. Then you can see in 3.2 the bird strike occurrences, as would be expected given the reduction in traffic during the first, particularly the first 2 quarters of the year. Those numbers are significantly down on previous years. We did have an air prox incident reported on the 27th of May, which is detailed there. That has been reviewed subsequent to this period by the Air Prox board, and no issues to address have been identified, and no fault found on the part of the Cornwall Airport Newquay Air Traffic Control Department in relation to that incident. In relation to on-time performance, moving to item 4 at the bottom of page 5 and the top of page 6, you can see the graphs there that are fairly self-evident. Item number 5, punctuality statistics, as would be expected with what is still a very, very quiet operation as far as passenger flights are concerned. We've had very high levels of punctuality, with just 2 delays reported in July. Item 6, which I'll move on to at the top of page 8, in relation to complaints, there were no complaint correspondence received during the months of May, June or July of this year. So that concludes the operations manager's report. But of course, happy to field any questions from any members.
Okay, that's fine. So I've got a question from, I think I've got SM on my board. Stephen Murdoch.
Steve Murdoch, yes, I've got a question for Pete. And it's with regard to the routing of the Cobham training flights, which is something we've raised with air traffic and Cobham directly. But there have been a number of occasions, I witnessed it yesterday myself, where the Cobham training aircraft carrying underslung loads are being routed or taking a flight path directly over our helipads, including when we have been on startup during an Alpha call sign mission. This is a safety issue for us. It's delaying our launch to critical care patients, and I understood that the Cobham aircraft were not allowed to exit the runway centre line until they had cleared the airport boundaries, which they're clearly not doing. Can this be addressed?
We can, as you can appreciate, that is one, Stephen, that we do take very seriously, and we will follow up with Cobham and of course with our air traffic control team to investigate those specific incidents. I'd welcome obviously further information and detail on that directly from you, and we will ensure that any findings from that, we take the necessary steps, first and foremost to ensure that that compliance with the requirements for flying with those underslung loads is maintained, but of course, more importantly, that Cornwall Air Ambulance is not delayed under any circumstances in terms of departing on critical call-outs.
Okay,
Right.
thank you for that. Are you happy with that, Stephen?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Craig.
Okay, if you can take your hand down as well, that'd be fantastic. I think we've got Jeff Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just to express my thanks to Pete and the team who've worked really hard to secure the green shoots of recovery for the airport post-COVID, and also reduce the operational costs without compromising safety. I can't imagine that when Pete took the job was expecting it to be quite this challenging, but they've done a brilliant job so far, and we're looking forward to a great recovery for the airport going forward.
That's great. Thank you for that, Jeff. I don't know if Pete wants to respond.
Yes, thanks, Jeff. That's very much appreciated. I owe all of that successful and safe reopening to the management team that are in place, who during this period of real uncertainty, not just for obviously Cornwall Airport Limited, but for the wider airport industry, have gone above and beyond to an astonishing level in making sure that our reopening has been safe for customers, safe for operators, and, as you say, punctual and reliable. So the credit is all theirs.
That's great. Thank you. Next on the list, it's John Fisser.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Pete, if we could just go back very quickly to the Cobham problem, and you will have been aware since you took over this not poison chalice, but certainly a very difficult time, of the complaints from the St Morgan Parish Council acting on behalf of the residents at Carlogus, especially the elderly people who live at the top of Carlogus, over the activities of the Cobham helicopter. And can we have, I thought for the record, a public assurance that you will now actively engage with the residents group of Carlogus and the parish council in trying to come to some compromise in the interest of both parties. No one at the on St Morgan Parish Council, and certainly I, do not in any way wish to inhibit the recovery programme that's in place to keep the airport viable and to get it back on its feet again, and that is number one priority. But also, of course, whilst we're doing it, we must be sensitive, and I hope that you'll be able to reassure through this meeting today that you are sensitive to the concerns of the residents of Carlogus, especially, as I say, the elderly people who live in the retirement units right at the very top, who are most affected by the noise. So if you are able to sort of reassure the committee here today that you're conscious and you'll take it on board and you'll do your very level best to ensure that whatever happens, there is a mutual understanding and agreement and compromise from both parties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John.
Yes, I'm happy to respond to that, and thanks for the question, John. We absolutely take seriously our requirements to engage with the local community on noise. I'm really pleased to hear you recognise the very important role that that Cobham play in terms of providing traffic at the airport. Obviously, continued flying during the period of absence of commercial services during lockdown and providing vital income and diversification of activity at the airport. And you know, they're a very important stakeholder within the airport site and its future plans. But that must not come at the expense of engagement with local residents around noise, and we must consider all parties involved and look to find sensible ways in which we can all work together to minimise any noise disturbance on the local community. So both I and my team are very happy to engage with the community there, to listen to the concerns and to explore all options as to how that can be mitigated, and we're very happy to do that.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter. John, are you happy?
Yeah,
with
that Mr. Chairman, that's brilliant and very reassuring. And as Churchill said, jaw is better than war, and that's all we asked for, and all they asked for. So thank you very much indeed, Pete. I'm very grateful for that reassurance, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Next on the list is Councillor Rushworth.
Thank you, Chairman. Two questions. The first one is, could we have an update on the demolition of the control tower and the fire station? Is that going to go ahead, and or has it already started? And my second question is really, I just looked up on Companies House, and I'm very pleased that Councillor Fitter's name is still on the register of directors. I think it's very important that we carry on with the stability from all levels of management at the airport. So could you confirm that the remaining 6 directors are still in place and will be continuing to be in place to see us through these difficult times? Thank you.
In terms of the first question, I believe that we have Graham Scrimgeour, our commercial estates manager, on the call, who may be able to provide an update in relation to the old air traffic control tower.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Councillor Rushworth. Yep, just to confirm, the Cornwall Council capital projects have been working on the instruction to demolish the tower to free up the development site for some time, and the instruction to undertake that demolition was accepted by Gilpins, and they actually started on site on the 22nd of September this week, and they're due to be on site for 14 weeks to complete that job.
And then,
sorry, Pete, have you got more to say? Go on.
Well, no, I was going to respond to Councillor Rushworth's second question, but I don't know whether he wanted to come back on the response to the first question prior to that.
No, I'm happy with the first.
Okay. Yes, in relation to the second question, that there have been some proposed changes at a CoreServe group level to the board structure of the CoreServe group of companies, which requires shareholder approval from Cornwall Council, and that process has been undertaken. As far as the board of directors of CAL is concerned, we have our next board meeting this afternoon, and I've been very grateful for the extensive support and commitment that the CAL directors have provided during this period, and that, as I understand it, sat here today, is set to continue.
Okay, so could you confirm that if there have been changes to the board, they will be shortly appearing on the Companies House website?
Yes, we have a legal requirement through the company secretary to file any changes with Companies House, and absolutely that will be done, and will be done in the promptest time frame possible.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Are you happy with that, Stephen?
Yes, Chairman, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got a question. It doesn't look like there's any more questions. My question to you, Pete, was the air prox imaging, or the air prox incident, as you called it. Whereabouts did it actually happen?
That is a very good question. I thought the report on that had detailed that it was not. I should be clear, it was not on the aerodrome itself. I can provide the precise location, but I can confirm it was not in or around the immediate environs of the aerodrome.
Mr. Chairman, it was in Holsworthy. I think you'll find it is in the report.
I think it said that the plane or the glider came out of Holsworthy. That's why I asked. I was just, if it was up there, that's what I was trying to establish, Councillor Fisher. Thank you for your comment. Okay, so if there are no further questions on that report, we're on to and I guess that Pete's going to do this as well. It's the Cornwall Airport business update report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will. Apologies for the committee having to listen to the sound of my voice for an extended period of time here, but I will take everyone through the business update report. Again, it's a rather unusual quarter in that obviously the airport was closed to commercial traffic until July, so we've reported on the route by route traffic that has been seen since the reopening. Of course, I would caveat some of those numbers in terms of the reopening being a very gradual one during July. So British Airways, for example, did not commence their route until towards the very end of the month. Ryanair services began at the start of the month, and then Eastern Airways services sort of in between those two restarts. Moving on to 2.2, route network and development. Clearly, we're dealing with not just the rebuilding of traffic, given the impact of COVID-19, but actually the prior collapse of Flybe and the task that we have to identify and attract airlines to replace that capacity, which is obviously a fiercely competitive activity, given that there has not been a carrier that has stepped into the breach in effect and picked up a large number of those Flybe routes. And given that almost immediately after Flybe's collapse, there obviously descended a level of very significant market uncertainty, and that continues almost on a week-by-week basis with changes to travel advice, changes to workplace advice, and that is obviously making it a real challenge to secure firm commitment from airlines in the short term. But I am very pleased to update the group on an outlook for 2021 that I think is getting increasingly positive as we reach firm agreements with carriers. So just taking the airline by airline updates. The British Airways emergency PSO, which is the 7-month process procured under the emergency regulations, that was concluded and services commenced on the 24th of July. It moved to 5 flights a week in August, and the plan remains as things stand at the moment for that to move to 7 days a week in October. But of course, as with everything else, that remains subject to change. As far as our island flights are concerned, particularly the Dublin flight, I think most people know that the travel restrictions in the Republic of Ireland are some of the most restrictive anywhere in Europe, and essentially that is continuing to lead to the postponement of the return of the Dublin service, although ongoing dialogue with the airline there is very positive, and I anticipate that when those restrictions begin to ease, be that during this winter or into 2021, that we will bring that service back. Eurowings, with their very much inbound tourism focused summer seasonal service, the continued uncertainty over international travel and the reopening of the hospitality industry during this period obviously led to Eurowings taking the decision to suspend their planned operation, though they have confirmed that next summer that is back in their schedule, and they do intend to operate that again next year, which is very good, very positive news. I think Ryanair have continued during this period to operate their full planned schedule of 2 flights per week to Faro and 2 per week to Alicante. They have reduced their planned flying during the winter. They would have expected to fly 2 services per week to Alicante, and that has been reduced to 1. That's in line with reductions that they're making across their network, but they do have a full program on sale for also for next year. Scandinavian Airways, SAS, much like Eurowings, took the decision, given the uncertainty over tourism, to cancel their program for the summer just gone, and we continue to have discussions with them around following in the footsteps of Eurowings and reinstating their program for next year. I'm pleased to report there was a significant development in recent weeks with Logan Air, who have put on sale a range of the former Flybe routes to Scotland and the north of England, which are really vital pieces of domestic connectivity for Cornwall. So Edinburgh, Glasgow, Newcastle and Aberdeen will commence from the end of March 2021. Same thing with Blue Islands on their Jersey service. They have now got that service on sale at its usual frequency for next summer. We are in discussions with Isles of Scilly Steamship Group around confirming their summer 2021 program as well. Eastern Airways, having seen such good performance on the routes that they started this summer, which were initially only planned to run until mid-September, they have taken the decision to extend those routes on a year-round basis and put them on sale into next year as well. And as I mentioned earlier on, have added additional flights and placed larger aircraft on routes to respond to the staycation demand, for want of a better term, that they have seen in recent weeks. In terms of other routes that we're seeking to fill, the decision that we've had from the Department for Transport is that at this point in time, a public service obligation will not be granted on the Manchester route in the short term, as the government wishes to complete its review into regional connectivity that was announced back in January before making any decisions on a piecemeal basis. But we continue to actively discuss opportunities to serve the Manchester route on a commercial basis, and I remain very confident that those discussions will be fruitful and will lead to the Manchester service being reinstated between October and March of next year. And we continue to work very actively with Cornwall Council on the procurement process for the next 4-year London PSO. The tender process of which actually begins in the next few days. In terms of commercial and property development, of course, that was relatively restricted in the early part of the period on which we're reporting. As far as the airport commercial performance is concerned, I'm pleased to report that actually of the passengers that we have been carrying, the ancillary spend has remained fairly robust and has been largely unimpacted by the requirement to wear face coverings in the terminal and other COVID measures, which has supported the decision that we made to retain a manned cafe and retail facility. And then on the property front, obviously we have Graham at the meeting who can answer any specific queries in relation to commercial property. But I think it's fair to say that whilst the commercial aviation industry has really struggled during this period. Actually, we've continued to see a fairly positive pipeline of interest on other airport-related property requirements, and we continue to have a wide range of discussions with potential tenants in relation to the former Skybus hangar on the north side, and a number of other properties on site. The marketing section of the report in 2.4 at the bottom of page 11 is fairly self-explanatory, so I won't take up time in the meeting talking through that line by line, but I will just say that as part of our efforts to reduce cost and work as smartly as we can, we've been really driving social media activity and organic engagement around new route launches, and that has actually proved very successful. We've had, by some margin, some of the strongest engagement on a range of web and social media channels that we've ever had in and around, particularly the arrival of British Airways at the airport, but the reopening, the safety messages around our 10-step COVID safety plan, and certainly we've had some really useful learnings in terms of how much reach and engagement we can drive on an organic basis through our owned marketing channels. So happy to take any further questions on that from the committee.
Okay, thanks for that, Pete. Councillor Rushworth, you've still got your hand up. Is that because you're itching to be at the front of the queue of this bit, or you?
So I have no questions to ask. Just to say, I think under the difficult circumstances, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the business update report? Okay, I've actually got one, Pete. How come the Manchester one's taking so long to sort out? Is it because we've often been told it's the jewel in the crown of the route into Newquay? What's the particular issue we're sorting? Are you just inundated with people who want to fly into Newquay from Manchester, or you're hanging out for the best deal, or just you can give us as much as you can about what's going on there?
Yeah, there's a little bit of all of that at play. I think the Manchester route was set to provide over 100,000 passengers to the airport this year prior to the Flybe collapse, and we know from the data that we study the leakage to other airports and other modes of transport that actually that was a market that pre-COVID was capable of even more than that. So it is very much the jewel in the crown of the airport's commercial network, PSO aside. And we have got interest from a number of airlines. It's important to us that we find an airline partner that can do that service justice in terms of providing the right schedule, the right brand, the right level of capacity. We don't want to be in a position where the route becomes underserved as the aviation market recovers. But the conversations are very, very active, and we hear loud and clear the feedback from the public as to how much that route is needed again and needed to be served fairly quickly. I'm optimistic we may have some good news on that in a fairly short time frame. But we continue to work very hard on not just finding any airline to serve the route, but finding the right airline on the right schedule to ensure that the Manchester route can get back to delivering more than 50,000 passengers a year to the airport as soon as possible.
Okay, that's very reassuring. Thank you very much. Councillor Fitter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just thought I'd mention also, I think Peter has been very modest with the amount of hard work that he and his team have put in at the airport. And it's worth mentioning, I suspect many members will have seen it, but there was an observation from the chairman, I believe, of British Airways, that in August, one day in August, they took more passengers to Newquay in one day than they took to America. So that really sums up the crisis that the airline industry worldwide has been having. So what has been happening at Newquay Airport has been absolutely brilliant in, you know, riding the storm and attempting to come out the other side. We've a long way to go, but certainly that puts in perspective the mountain that Pete and his team have to climb. And he'll get there, but I just thought that was a very interesting comment from the chairman of British Airways. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fitter. Thank you very much for your awards. That's great. Okay, so we're on to the next item. Unless there's any further questions about the business report, we're on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Aero Hub enterprise update. Who do we have to give the Aero Hub enterprise? Ian.
That would be me. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the Aero Hub Business Park Enterprise Zone hasn't been immune from the impact of COVID-19. That said, I'm pleased to report that we've seen quite a lot of interest and activity return to particularly the Sector 2 development, the council-owned Sector 2 development, once the restrictions started to lift earlier in June, and we completed a new lease on the offices last week. So that takes the occupancy levels up to 5. 5 of the 9 units now let, the office is now let, and 1 of the industrial units. And we're at a very advanced stage on letting for another 6 industrial units and 2 offices. So overall, I would say this, and using Sector 2 as an indicator, the business park has been surprisingly resilient, actually, to the impact of COVID-19, which has obviously been felt across the commercial property sector quite severely. We've also got negotiations for a further plot sale, Sector 11, at a very, very advanced stage now, potentially hoping to complete on those within the next month. And at a more general interest across the Aero Hub as a whole, we've seen lots of interest and inquiries coming through some of the complementary projects that we're involved with, such as Cornwall Trade and Investment, the Aerospace Research and Development Project. So actually, Cornwall Development Company, who manage those programs, are telling us that, if anything, they've seen a slight uptick in interest and inquiries about businesses looking to locate at the Aero Hub, both the business park and within the main kind of airport complex itself over the last 6 months. So challenging time, yes, but some encouraging signs as well. The other thing I would say is that one of the key measures of success for an enterprise zone is the extent to which you've got an active capital program. We've done reasonably well over the last couple of years. We've seen the development and the opening of Sector 2, which opened about this time last year. The new developments on Sector 15 of the Aero Hub Business Park, which is the new Watergate Bay headquarters, has been in construction and has recently completed. And despite the current challenges, we've obviously had an update on the progress that's being made with the demolition works inside the fence, which will provide further space for growth. And very recently, Cal was successful in securing funding through the government's Getting Building Fund to provide further workspace inside the fence to meet some of the demand we're seeing. So overall, and against a very challenging background, the enterprise zone program is progressing, probably not at the speed we would have hoped, but we are managing to maintain some of the momentum we built up over the last few years. So overall, an encouraging picture, which I think puts us in a really good position to kind of see an acceleration of that program as and when we start to get through the current crisis.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Do we have any questions for Ian? Councillor Fitter.
Good morning, Ian. Ian, couple of questions. I'm intrigued. You said demolitions inside the fence. Could you just tell me what fence you're referring to?
Sure. So, sorry about that. Yes. So, inside the operational airport, I was referring to the update we had earlier from Graham in terms of the progress on the air traffic control tower.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, for clarity, that's outside the fence. We're not talking about demolitions inside the fence, which of course is controlled by Cowell itself as such. So that's brilliant for that clarity, and thank you very much indeed. On the enterprise boat, just for confirmation, there's been a combined rate relief to the value of £147,000. That money in actual fact gets redirected back down to CDC, doesn't it? We give the rate relief and then we claim it back, and it goes to CDC, does it, to reinvest?
No, not quite. So how the enterprise zones work is that any rate growth within the enterprise zones is captured in a ring-fenced pot, and then decisions about how that funding is reinvested are taken by the Enterprise Zone Board, which is a sub-board of the local enterprise partnership. The vast majority of that money is reinvested into the enterprise zones and furthering the objectives of the enterprise zones.
Yeah, so in effect, can it be used in actual fact then to some of the units will have run out because the rate relief only lasts for a certain period of time, I believe. So is some of that money perhaps being used in actual fact to cover rates that businesses would not be entitled to receive because they've run out of time with the enterprise zone mandate or period, if you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah, you're right. The initial period of rate relief for the Aero Hub Enterprise Zone came to an end a couple of years ago now. So the money that's collected into the what we call the Enterprise Zone Growth Fund, that pot of rate growth, can be reinvested in a number of ways. It can be invested in supporting infrastructure projects. It can be supported through direct grants to businesses, essentially kind of inward investment incentives, that kind of thing. Or it can be given as essentially rate relief. All of those decisions and all of those applications are kind of publicly available information that are available on the LEP's website. But yes, in some cases that money has been used to provide further rate relief for businesses occupying space in the Aero Hub Enterprise Zone.
Right, thank you very much indeed, Ian. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that's fine. Any further questions for Ian? I have just one. Ian, do you know the cycling hub that we're getting up there? Is that in your remit at all, or is that in a completely separate area to you?
It's a separate area to us. It is in the enterprise zone boundary. If it's delivered where it's hoped it will be delivered, but yes, it's a project that's being taken forward by the transport team within the council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so if there's no further questions for Ian, I think we should go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Spaceport update. Miles.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to forum members. You've had my report, so if I can just highlight some of the things in that report, if possible. Obviously, we are now progressing the works required ahead of the licence application next year, and are working with colleagues in Cornwall Council and at COW to design the infrastructure works required on the airport. The design works are probably 95% complete, and therefore we're pretty much at the stage where we're looking at procurement and specifying of those works. Those are the on-airport works required to operate the Boeing 747 aircraft for Virgin Orbit. We've done some work recently, completed compliantly with the UK Space Agency, got a grant £306,000 from the Space Agency to look at some work around future structures, legal framework, and mission control facilities and mission control management, i.e. things like communications during missions. And that work is now complete compliantly. And just to inform in terms of the team, we've just appointed a dedicated outreach and education officer for the team, which I think is a really positive step. And David Pollard has just joined us, is now looking at creating the school outreach program. And we've just actually put a post out for a spaceport operations manager within Cornwall Airport Limited, and that will be the lead role for the license application and the safety management systems at the airport. So again, two big positives from my perspective. The other large piece of news is the UK Space Agency have commenced their consultation on the secondary launch legislation. That's due to complete towards the mid-late October, 21st of October. And obviously Cornwall Council, in partnership with partners Cornwall Airport Limited, Goonhilly Air Station and others, will be submitting a detailed response to that legislation. That's only the consultation ahead of those requirements going through Parliament next year. We expect that work to be completed the summer of next year, and therefore that will allow us to apply for our spaceport application through next year, ready for the launch in March 2022. Other items to highlight, obviously we've been working hard with Virgin Orbit in terms of the procurement of the supply chain support launch in the UK, and specifically looking at regional and local suppliers for that supply chain. That's been challenged by COVID-19, but we've gone totally online and had some considerable success by using Microsoft Teams to do local and national webinars to both look at the tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. We expect the tier 1 supplier, the main supplier to Virgin Orbit, and that's to supply the ground support equipment for the aircraft, to be announced into next month. So we are active. We are full on in terms of the project going forward, and we're already getting both working with colleagues in Economic Growth Service in Mackworth on interest from investors looking to support Virgin, but also to support launch from Cornwall Airport Newquay by 2022. So I hope that's the main highlights. Happy to take questions. I think Councillor Rushworth already has one, so happy to take those.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Miles. Councillor Rushworth.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, Miles. Miles, I will ask. I've got another question as well, but obviously the one I want to ask, so it can be recorded in the minutes. Richard Branson is using liquid fuel technology for his launch. I think you did agree at the last meeting that so far, or to date, or it may have changed in the last day or two, I'm not sure, that there hasn't been no successful launch of liquid fuel vertical horizontal launch yet achieved. I do acknowledge that there's been successful solid fuel launches. I don't know if you want to answer that one first, and I'll come on to my second question.
I'm happy to answer that, Chair. It came out of a public question last meeting in terms of the technology and the fuel used. And I think, to be absolutely clear, I think what I said last meeting, I'll repeat for the minutes today, is the technology of using liquid oxygen and kerosene in a liquid form in a rocket is proven technology. A lot of the systems that we all know very well, example SpaceX, even the shuttle program, and some other more modern and newer rockets such as Rocket Labs, use a LOX kerosene mix, but they're used vertically. What they haven't been used for is in a way horizontally. So one of the only systems to use horizontal systems had a solid fuel-based rocket, but Virgin Orbit certainly aren't the only people looking at technology out of the US for horizontal purposes. There's one other company looking at that. So LOX kerosene is by far the large and most common use of a propellant in the space industry, but it's the way it's used horizontally, vertically. It is not proven horizontally rather than a vertical rocket. I hope that's clear. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Miles. My second question is, in the minutes and the bullet point 3, you confirmed that the Spaceport did not require the demolition of the old traffic control tower or the former fire service station to deliver the approved Spaceport projects. In the Cabinet meeting of the 16th, there's a section on page 215 which says Spaceport Cornwall's 1.505 million, the construction phase of the Spaceport project, will have to be delayed in order to align with the timescales concerning when the council will be able to take possession of the site. This is not expected to take place until May 2021, and as a result, any forecast expenditure in relation to the construction phase has been reprofiled into the 2021-2022 financial year. So I'm a little bit confused. If you don't want this site, and I believe that the money coming forward is from the Spaceport project, why is that happening? You say that you're in contact with Cornwall Council on a very, very regular basis. So you can give an explanation to that. But I'd also like to say that I'm fully supportive of the other money coming into the airport to get us over these very difficult times, and did support that Cabinet. Although I didn't vote on it, I did support it. So if you can give me, I'd just like to know, and I think the people of Cornwall would like to know, what's happening. Why are we doing the demolition when you don't want it?
I'm happy to answer through the chair. Happy to answer that question. I think Councillor Fitter has raised the question through the portfolio holder, Jeff, as well. I responded to that yesterday, which happy to reply in that way. My understanding is the Cabinet paper, when it was talking about possession of the site, was talking about possession of the building, and the money in that paragraph, the £1.5 million, is the budget allocated for the refurbishment of that building. So the Spaceport doesn't need possession of any site, but it does need possession of a launch integration building, and that is expected in May, June 2021. So I think the wording in the Cabinet report could have been tighter, and I can just clarify that at the moment we don't need possession of any site. We do need a possession of a building from Cornwall Airport Limited in May, June 2021 for the commitment of the fit-out building to be commenced. So I think it's confusion in the wording rather than any link to the air traffic control side.
So, if I may come back, Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Ian.
So, are you really saying, with the responses that you made, that this site would not be your preferred site?
What, the air traffic control tower site?
No, this for your building that you may require in the future.
In the Spaceport plans, we have plans for taking a existing building from Cornwall Airport Limited, or any alternative that Cornwall Airport Limited provide for us. So we're simply looking to Cornwall Airport Limited to provide that for us. I don't think we're demanding anything. We just need a building of particular size to do the launch integration.
But would that be your preferred site, or would another site be your preferred site?
In the council approvals, our initial preferred site was the use of building 33, but Cornwall Airport Limited looking at options in terms of whether there are any better solutions. Graham Scrimgeour might want to come in to respond on the specifics of that, because certainly I'm not in the driver of that decision.
Thank you.
Well, Graham, you can come in, but I mean, I don't want to get into semantics of some future conversation that's going to be had in a year or two's time, but you're welcome to come in with what information you can provide if you want to.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Miles. I mean, it's just, Cornwall Airport Limited, we're in a relatively fortunate position in that there's demand for property at the airport, and all of our property is important to us in terms of our revenue generation to help support the airport, and the sort of as we come out of the pandemic, it will ultimately the more we lease, the less we rely on the public purse. So we've got an option to lease the building 33. Which is substantial income to the airport, and as Ian mentioned, Cal themselves have applied for funding through the Get Building Fund through the central government and the LEP, and as part of the funding that we've been awarded, we intend to construct a new facility at the airport, which will be on the development site, which is an allocated site within the master plan. and that property will be made available to lease back to Cornwall Council or Spaceport as an occupier, and it fits sort of the requirements in that its location is close to the Echo Apron, but ultimately that whole site is earmarked and allocated in the master plan for the future development of properties relating to airside use.
Okay. Councillor Rushworth, you've gone offline. Are you happy with that?
Yes, I'm not sure that speculatively we should be putting money at this particular point when we need every pound to keep the airport open, but that's only my own opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Councillor Fitter.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Miles, sort of a few questions which I'm sure you would like to answer so that we can get some sort of clarity. You sir, have got a budget to do the work that you're doing, you know, and obviously there's a lot of work. In that budget, are you reallocating the various services that CAL has given you in the preparation for your license? Obviously there's time involved, and you've just said that, you know, that CAL are engaged in helping you with material for the license. So will there be a facility for CAL to claim from your budget the expense that they will have incurred in man-hour times in preparing the license fee work? We followed with interest the progress of your only customer, which is the Richard Branson outfit team, etc. and so forth. They're the only people that you're engaged with at the moment, and perhaps you could confirm if you've got another possible customer that you're dealing with. We don't need to know the name, but if you have got another customer that may be willing to come in, then you know, reassurance on that would be helpful. But given that Richard Branson's operation has so far sort of failed to meet their own targets, I just wondered, when do you, sir, as a Spaceport director, because time stops for no man and the clock is ticking and we carry on down, and soon in actual fact we'll be into the year 2021. When do you, if there is no progress from Richard Branson and his team, when do you carry out a reality check on where we go? When do we actually stop if there is no progress? Or are you confident that you have other customers in the background who will use the facilities and the expertise that you're building up? Because I think that is quite an important reassurance message for the people of Cornwall, that we're not continuing to sort of pour money in without at some stage having a reality check on, you know, when do we stop if we need to stop? If you could come back on that with me, that'd be absolutely excellent. I do have one other question, sir, though. Thank you.
You're happy to cover those, Mr. Chair, if that's okay. In terms of CAL resourcing and obviously the payment of CAL have been reimbursed for some costs of work done to date in terms of some of the technical resources, and that was only an interim position pending the recruitment of the Spaceport operations manager, and having worked in partnership with Pete and the team, we believe that the Spaceport operations manager will have sufficient cover to be in a full-time post to cover all the work required, working with partners in the airport to do that. So CAL have been paid for services over the last 6 months from the Spaceport, Cornwall Council Spaceport budget, and that the new resource should cover the requirements of that going forward. In terms of the future customers, Virgin Orbit are not our only customer we're dealing with. It's not only around launch operators, but also the people who support launch operations, and therefore we've got a number of very live inquiries. In fact, we are under NDA to another operator, and we're working with Cornwall Airport Limited to look at the operations of that system in the future. But I'm not at liberty to be able to say who that is at this stage. We are likely to make announcements around the operator at some stage in the future, probably within the next 3 to 6 months, when our relationship to that operator is established. In terms of the technology in Virgin Orbit, in terms of where we are, then as we've made clear many times, until that technology is proven in the US by putting a rocket into space, then we're not committing capital. We made that clear, and obviously Jeff Brown, Councillor Brown on this call, is supportive of that position. So the review point will be at the time that technology is proven, and throughout the programme of the Spaceport, we've got various review points that are regularly reviewed by the Cornwall Council Aerospace Board and the Spaceport Board. So, and that's chaired by SRO is Glenn Kaplan, Head of Economic Growth Service, and chaired by Phil Mason. So there's a robust process internally in Cornwall Council to have a regular review of progress and the risks posed by Cornwall Council at various stages of exposure to capital expenditure. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you very much. John?
Thank you very much indeed. And if I can just round it off for reassurance, because I'm passionate about the airport, and quite frankly, the religions and Spaceport Cornwall is in a way a word to describe your project. The kernel in the stone, the heart of it is in actual fact Cornwall Airport, which obviously is vital for Cornwall. And so that without the airport, you can't do anything. So we need to spend the money on the airport. And to that end, sometime back, you mentioned in actual fact in the money that you received, the capital programme, that there was money out of that Spaceport money to provide LED lighting for the runway, to future-proof the runway for the future, and indeed, in actual fact, to reduce our carbon footprint. Can you confirm that that money will still be available to provide the LED lighting for the airport itself? Thank you.
Yes, we'll check a couple of things in there. I'm sure, hopefully Pete might come in and reiterate, but Cornwall Council and Cornwall Airport Limited have a shared view that Spaceport Cornwall is a massive part of the future of the airport and potential future revenue for that airport in terms of long-term sustainability. And the Spaceport is a Cornwall Council project. The team is based in Cornwall Council, and we work on a daily basis with the team in Cornwall Airport Limited Partnership. So they're very much almost one and the same as far as I'm concerned. In terms of the LEDs, absolutely, it's in the budget, and that is programmed to be done. Whether that is done this stage or whether it is done the winter of 21-22, that's to be determined, dependent on operations. But the replacement of the LEDs is in the budget and has been designed.
Okay.
And so in actual fact, then the money is in the budget, is in that part of that £10 million that was sort of set aside, and it will be spent regardless of anything. We will get the future proofing of the airport with LED lighting.
The LED lighting is a critical stage of the project for the airport and the Spaceport when we move from what we call from the first stage into longer term operations. So absolutely it's in the project and is part of the approvals we've had from Cornwall Council. So yes.
Yeah, but and its fate, I don't want to belabor the point, but its fate is not tied into the Spaceport project per se. Regardless of what happens to the Richard Branson mission, whether it's success or failure, we will get the LED lighting. Is that correct? Because it was made clear, I think, when you gave an original impression that part of this was future-proofing the airport for future generations.
My understanding of the approval by Cornwall Council is that we have got to have a clear trajectory towards getting an operational spaceport for the commitment to those funds. So yes, if we can show that to that first launch, absolutely the LED lights will be part of the spaceport program, as will be many other improvements to the airport which are not directly spaceport related. So they're more related to the operations of the large aircraft than regulatory requirements for safe space flight. So the airport will receive not only LED lights but significant other improvements both to the runway and the taxiways to operate other large aircraft in the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Miles. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for that, Miles. I've got I've got Peter who wants to come in, but I've also got Jeff. I think Jeff might be able to clear up some of the delivery aims of the updates and things, if you can, Jeff. If you want to come in, Jeff.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Spaceport has got huge potential to enhance the economic benefits of Cornwall, but I've been very clear all the way through that we will not be committing any of the capital until the Virgin Orbit operation is proven. I would like to agree with Councillor Fitter that for the Spaceport to be successful, a successful airport is critical. Without the airport, there will be no Spaceport. We've made that clear to the Department for Transport. That's why we're seeking to protect the airport at the moment going forward. And I'm really pleased that Pete and the team are doing such a great job to make sure that the airport's a success.
Okay, thanks for that, Jeff. Thanks very much. Pete, did you want to come in?
Yes, just very quickly, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, from a CAL perspective, just echo what Miles has been saying about the importance of the close working relationship between Spaceport and CAL, and the fact that there is an extensive regular dialogue there. The diversification of the airport's activity is critical to us achieving our objective of ultimately reducing over the long term the subsidy requirement. And there are a range of areas, not just the airfield lighting, but ground support equipment, property and estates development, that actually the Spaceport will play a really significant part in helping us to diversify our activity, and we're very grateful for the support that's already been made available in terms of the funding to recruit a Spaceport operations manager. There's a challenging couple of years ahead of us in terms of securing that Spaceport license, but we're as aligned as we possibly can be in terms of undertaking that work together.
Okay, thanks for that, Pete. Jeff, I know your hand's up. Is that something else to say, or from before?
Apologies, it's down now.
That's okay. Any other further questions for Miles? Okay, thanks very much for your answers, Miles, and your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so unless anyone's got anything to say, we're on to item number 9, which is date of the next meeting. Rowena, if you want to come in.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The next date will be Thursday, the 17th of December at 10 AM. I'm likely to be another virtual meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I think we're with them for still a while yet. Any other business at the Chairman's considered to be urgent? Well, there isn't. So, okay, thank you very much for attending. And unless there's anything else from anybody right now, we'll close the meeting. Okay,
thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you, Chairman. Well done. Very good.
Bye.